Have you ever wondered what truly binds us in our sorrows and persistent pains? The renowned psychologist Alfred Adler once made a deeply insightful observation. Most of the worries of people in this world stem from human relationships. And isn't that true? Throughout our lives, past conflicts, casual remarks, and deliberate hurtful actions can all leave deep imprints on our hearts. Some wounds are as clear as day and easy to spot, but others lie dormant, quietly festering, never truly disappearing, subtly influencing our lives, keeping our minds trapped in a cycle of suffering. When your soul is shackled by resentment, it inevitably impacts your physical health. Haven't you noticed how deeply connected our bodies and minds are in a continuous energy flow? When our minds are imprisoned by anger, grudges, hatred, or even guilt, our bodies often react by developing illnesses. In other words, the body is a mirror reflecting the soul. This is a powerful moment, isn't it? For so long, we've searched for the root causes of our ailments externally, rarely looking deep within our own souls. So, if today you still find yourself controlled by negative emotions when the past floods back, if old memories still stir turmoil within you, if deep in your heart loneliness still reigns, or you're tormented by the quicksand of guilt over past events, or perhaps you're battling chronic physical illnesses with no clear cause, then the book we're about to explore today, Forgive for Good by Dr. Fred Luskin, might just untangle those knots that have been tightening in your heart. This is a New York Times bestseller, a book with an incredibly powerful and moving impact on its readers. It embodies a message that everyone understands, yet few can truly put into practice: the power of forgiveness. Dr. Fred Luskin is a medical doctor specializing in attention disorders, a professor at Harvard Medical School, and the director of the Hallowell Center for Counseling and Therapy. He distilled his practical experience in psychological treatment, his own life's pain and loss, and the sincere stories of those he met into this profound book. So, what gives forgiveness such extraordinary power, and why is it so incredibly difficult for us to practice? Let's dive in and discover the most essential insights the author wishes to share with each of us. We've all experienced anger towards someone who hurt us, haven't we? It could be unintentional or deliberate criticism, insults, contempt, bullying, actions that infringed on our rights, or even betrayal that cost us jobs, money, loved ones, or destroyed our lives. All of these can leave behind a lifetime of unforgettable resentment, seemingly impossible to forgive. Blame, indignation, hatred, and suffering caused by someone who hurt us are all part of human nature. But my friend, nothing lasts forever. Even the most terrible wounds will eventually become a thing of the past. They will fade away. Why do you still cling to them in your heart, letting them wrap tightly around you? Imagine it like this. Resentment is an invisible chain. At first, it's loose, but over time, it transforms into a persistent, hard-to-break grudge. Children resent parents. Parents despise children. Siblings turn their backs on each other. Divorced couples view each other as enemies. Neighbors become thorns in our sides. We are inherently stubborn, always convinced we are right, and we love to play the victim. Everyone believes my pain is the greatest. The harm I've suffered is the most special, and the other person's wrongdoing deserves the most severe punishment. And so, we walk through each day carrying the heavy burdens of resentment and suffering. In your mind, those old wounds become evidence to sustain the pain in your heart, to justify the negativity and anger within you. In that very stubbornness, we shackle ourselves to the past. The harder you try to move forward, the tighter it binds you, causing you every kind of pain, from mental anguish to physical torment. The longer resentment festers in your heart, the more it clings to your soul, transforming it into a ravenous beast, starved of love, distorting your perception, incapable of thinking of anything other than punishing and getting revenge on the person who caused you pain. The great President Nelson Mandela once said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." A truly profound statement, don't you think? Your resentment can't reach the other person. It only feeds the pain of the one holding on to it. Furthermore, you need to understand that revenge might bring fleeting satisfaction, but after that, there's only emptiness, loss, and continued suffering. Revenge doesn't heal wounds, it only digs them deeper, creating more hatred and hurt. It can also make a person numb, gradually losing the ability to feel love, compassion, and kindness. Instead of solving problems, revenge only pushes people further away from peace and happiness. Buddha himself once taught, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule." We all know that forgiveness is the healing remedy for all. But why haven't we been able to forgive? Why can't we let go? Now, let's delve deeper into the invisible barriers that prevent us from reaching forgiveness. This is a section that I believe will resonate with many of you, as it explains things that sometimes we ourselves don't even realize. So, what is forgiveness? Author Fred Luskin defines it very clearly. Forgiveness is the act of freeing yourself from the haunting injustice you once experienced, to live a life of freedom, no longer shadowed by the person who caused you harm. It sounds simple, but forgiveness is a thorny path, by no means easy. We often don't see reasons to forgive, but we find countless reasons never to. The biggest reason, perhaps, is that we fear losing control and power over the person who hurt us. Our ego's instinct is to attack the aggressor, to defend against the painful experience, and to re-establish a sense of safety. The more painful the wound, the more intense the desire for revenge. Forgiveness wounds the ego. It forces the ego to release control. Just imagining forgiveness can make us feel threatened and worried about being seen as weak, cowardly, and spineless. Our towering ego never allows us to let go of our pride, self-esteem, arrogance, or sometimes even complacency in order to forgive. This leads us to stubbornly insist that we can never forgive anyone who wrongs us. Doing so feels like going against our survival and self-preservation instincts, while hating the person who hurt us often serves as a comforting balm for our wounds. The second reason is that you lack the courage to forgive. The author states, "Forgiveness begins in pain." This is another powerful moment, isn't it? Because when you decide to forgive, you must stir up, directly confront, and accept the deepest pains you've ever experienced. Wounds are like thorns in the heart. The more you try to hide them, the deeper they pierce, making every heartbeat heavier and more painful. Forgiveness is confronting pain. When you bravely pull that thorn from your heart by acknowledging the pain and accepting it, it will gradually dissolve. Third, you can't forgive when the person who caused the harm hasn't apologized or shown remorse. This is perhaps the most common obstacle. But you need to understand that if you allow your forgiveness to depend on the person who hurt you, then they can hold you hostage by halting your forgiveness process. In this way, your entire soul's freedom is placed in someone else's hands. Remember that you don't need validation from others to forgive, because this is your own personal journey to liberate your inner freedom. Fourth, forgiveness goes against the prevailing public opinion and human nature. When people believe that hatred is inherent to being human and that forgiveness belongs only to saints, it implicitly assumes that letting go of hatred is too difficult and distant, something only compassionate and noble saints can achieve. Therefore, we abandon forgiveness and view it as a foolish, weak, or even idiotic act. In reality, as Gandhi said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. You don't need to be a saint to forgive others, nor do you need to forgive others to become a saint. You forgive for your own freedom. Fifth, we believe that revenge is the only way to relieve pain, to reclaim what was lost, and to validate our long suffering. The heavier the injury, the harder it is to escape the haunting desire for revenge. Many people wallow in their wounds and try to amplify their pain to justify their acts of revenge. They do foolish things to punish the other person, unaware that they are also torturing themselves. They become slaves to their own pain. They allow their souls to be consumed in a vicious cycle of hatred, binding themselves with the thought that the other person must pay, must suffer, and must be unhappy for them to live in peace. Ultimately, they spend their entire lives unable to find peace, never knowing happiness, because pain turns into hatred, and hatred breeds bitterness throughout life. Sixth, we think that forgiving means sending the message, "You can keep hurting me." You need to understand that forgiveness does not mean condoning everything that person did, nor does it mean accepting or tolerating their behavior so they can continue to harm you. Forgiveness is about resolving an issue that belongs to you rather than the other person's wrongdoing. It is an act of freeing yourself from resentment and lingering pain. Forgiveness can save you, but it doesn't necessarily save the person who hurt you. Therefore, forgiveness does not preclude setting boundaries to wisely protect yourself and your soul, nor does it rule out the general forms of societal punishment to ensure the wrongdoer faces the consequences of their actions, allowing them to mature. Now that we understand the obstacles, what is the true power of forgiveness, and how will it transform our lives? Surely, you know that forgiveness is good for your physical health. When hatred piles up like a mountain, it grows and spreads in your body like a malignant tumor. Forgiveness will shrink that tumor, gradually making it disappear. Psychology professor Helen Schuckman once wrote, "All your illnesses stem from a lack of forgiveness." A very powerful statement, don't you think? Whenever we are sick, we need to look around and find the person we need to forgive. It could be your parents, your partner, your children, the classmate who teased and humiliated you, the neighbor who lied about you, the stranger who said cruel words online, the teacher who judged you as not good enough or immoral, or very possibly, it is yourself. No matter where the entanglement lies, how long it's been, or who it's with, someone needs to turn back to forgive and let go of the resentment in their heart. When you forgive, your body will no longer produce as many stress hormones. From this, stress-related illnesses like high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, headaches, muscle pain, stomach ulcers, and chronic inflammatory diseases will also decrease. At the same time, your immune system will improve, increasing its ability to fight off illness. And what about your inner self? How miraculous will forgiveness be for your soul? The author tells the story of Susie, a 7-year-old girl who was kidnapped. Her mother, after exhausted days of searching, swore, "Even if the kidnapper brings my daughter back safe now, I will immediately kill him with my bare hands." But then, a year after Susie disappeared, the kidnapper called and finally confessed to killing her. You know, if anyone has children, just imagining that happening to their child would be enough for the thought of hatred to consume the perpetrator. But Susie's mother didn't want hatred to invade her life. She chose a humanitarian act by requesting that the death penalty for the culprit be waived because she knew that another life lost would not lessen her pain of losing her child. Such punishment would only keep the bitterness and suffering imprisoned in the past, making life meaningless. Only forgiveness could truly save her, her family, and the victim's family. Just like Tom in this book, Tom had every reason to hate his disagreeable neighbor, who heartlessly poisoned his dog just because she hated its barking. He had enough rage to seek revenge on her, but Tom knew that all of it would be meaningless and toxic if it kept him bound to the pain of the past. No matter what he did, the dog couldn't come back to life, and holding on to hatred would only prolong the pain and invite illness. Tom chose to only remember his fond memories with his dog and chose to forgive. This decision to forgive his neighbor transformed his anger into empathy. Tom knew that behind a person so bitter towards life, like her, there was deep suffering and countless pains in their heart with nowhere to go. It's truly not easy to forgive someone who blatantly took something precious from you. Even if they apologize once, 10 times, or even 1,000 times, it's not enough to soothe the ache in your heart. What's more, so often, an apology or remorse from them never even happens. When your husband or boyfriend betrays you, he won't apologize. Instead, he'll blame you for living incorrectly, which is why he cheated. If someone steals your belongings, they certainly won't leave an apology note. When someone cuts you off in traffic, they just speed away. When people judge you, they believe you deserve it. Your neighbor throws trash into your yard and doesn't apologize. A colleague deliberately lies and sabotages you, and so on. So, what can we do to truly forgive? First, just ponder this. Ask yourself why you keep getting angry, even when you're in the right. That's an important question, isn't it? Do you want the poison of someone else's anger to permeate and destroy this one and only body of yours? Do you want your pain to grow or fade over the years? Do you think holding a grudge or seeking revenge in any way will end the suffering in your heart? Or is it just a deceptive satisfaction that your mind tricks you into believing? Can revenge change the past? Can revenge bring the dead back to life? I hope you will seriously reflect on and answer these questions for yourself. And here are a few things you should do to bring forgiveness into your daily life. Firstly, learn to acknowledge your hurts and your anger. This sounds simple, and everyone understands it needs to be done, but we don't always do it. Because of our pride, our ego's self-esteem will often prevent us from exposing ourselves. Never suppress your uncomfortable emotions. That's a natural part of the living experience. Take time and space to name, feel, and share those emotions. You can write down your feelings or share them with someone you trust. When you acknowledge your own negative emotions, the energy within you will no longer be blocked. That is also the foundation for you to let go of what has passed and forgive the mistakes of others. Secondly, practice self-control. Self-control is different from suppression. Here, self-control means restraining your anger when others hurt you. Typically, we cannot stay in a state of intense anger for more than 15 minutes because our body's chemistry doesn't allow us to endure such heightened emotions for longer. So if you cultivate the ability to control yourself, to remain silent and do nothing for a long enough period, by leaving the current situation, finding something else to do, or practicing mindfulness, focusing on your breath, thoughts, and feelings at that moment, you will be able to dissolve that peak state of tension without allowing anger to escalate, without your mind swimming in a sea of resentment, shame, and fury that could lead to unpredictable dangers and regrettable consequences. Thirdly, think clearly. Once you've calmed down, passed the stage of self-control, and deeply accepted and felt your emotions, your physiological functions will almost return to normal, and the anger will disappear. At this point, understand that in this world, in any matter, there will never be a perfect outcome for everyone. Therefore, it is inevitable that others will unintentionally hurt you, and you yourself will also hurt others. But this is an opportunity for each of us to learn to grow stronger through forgiveness and letting go of the past. Fourthly, remove the hooks that cling to you from past pain. First, ask yourself, what is binding you to resentment? For example, in broken marriages, the victim mentality can be a hook that prevents you from forgetting that tumultuous turning point. It might not cause severe consequences for you in the present, but it silently robs you of your joy every day. You should remember that the opposite of love is not hatred, but indifference. If you still feel a slight sense of unease, hatred, anger, or dissatisfaction when recalling an old relationship, then perhaps you haven't truly forgiven. You still can't let go. Sit quietly and deeply feel the emotions that are clinging to you. Observe yourself more whenever you think and act in ways that are stuck in the past. And above all, take responsibility for your own life's decisions. No matter who the entanglement is with, siblings, parents, friends, or children, ask yourself, what prevents you from forgiving? Is it jealousy, fear, or a sense of inferiority that keeps you from letting go, from reconciling with them? Everyone will have their own answers, their own hooks that need to be straightened, their own self-inquiry and self-realization. Finally, offer empathy to others. Most of us clearly understand our own pains, but it's often too difficult to grasp that the person we need to be ready to forgive also carries intricate wounds in their heart. Author Adia Sandy once wrote, "Everyone grows up with tragedy to some extent. Even with a great education, loving parents, and the best nurturing environment in the world, no one can grow up without experiencing some pain." Understanding this truth will help us develop great empathy for everyone, including those who have hurt us. From this, empathy will replace hatred, and compassion will dispel all suffering. When you empathize and forgive, you don't lose your self-control. You become more in control than ever before, because you have given yourself back your freedom. And you also need to understand that forgiveness does not force you to forget the past. It simply requires you to free yourself from the burden of what has irrevocably passed. That is enough. Ultimately, remember this: never force yourself to forgive. It is a process that takes time, and let it unfold naturally. As long as you decide to be willing to forgive, effectively manage your own emotions, and cultivate empathy for others, you will find light within yourself. And eventually, you'll realize you've forgiven without even knowing it. Are you ready to face an even bigger challenge and perhaps the most meaningful part of this journey? It's about the most difficult forgiveness, forgiving yourself. Perhaps the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. Sometimes we get caught in a cycle of regret, endlessly tormenting ourselves over mistakes we've made. We blame ourselves for wrong decisions, for hurtful words, for pain and loss caused to someone else, or for missed opportunities. These negative thoughts can become a heavy burden, making us feel unworthy of happiness or peace. If you hide your guilt and shame deep within your heart, hoping others won't see it, and only try to present your best self to the world, but in moments of solitude, you feel terrible and despise yourself, then Louise Hay, the author and self-healing psychological counselor, who overcame many adversities in her life, in many of her books, poured her heart out to tell you one incredibly important thing. Your most important task in this life is to love yourself. Self-love is the beginning of a lifelong relationship with yourself. It is the foundation for all positive changes in life. Among these, forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, is the most crucial act to free yourself from stagnant energy caused by negative emotions, and from there, to heal your own soul. If you have apologized to someone you hurt, but they didn't accept it, or if you've permanently lost the chance to apologize and make amends, then you need to understand that no matter how sincere you are, no matter how hard you try to fix things, some things in this world are simply beyond your control. Just ask yourself what lesson you've learned from that mistake instead of punishing yourself through criticism and judgment. That is the best form of remorse you can show. A mistake doesn't define a person. And if you don't forgive yourself, you are silently telling the world that you are unworthy of love. By doing so, you will undoubtedly attract more suffering and unhappiness into your life. Directing yourself towards positive values in life and constantly reflecting on your own actions and words is the best way to avoid further mistakes and a way of living that helps you feel worthy of self-forgiveness. Furthermore, find someone you can confide in and share your mistakes and regrets. Listening to their advice and comfort will gradually lessen your guilt. In fact, when you criticize others less and forgive them, you also simultaneously find it easier to forgive yourself. Now, let's broaden our perspective a bit to see how forgiveness can transform not only our personal lives, but also the world around us. This world would be a better place if everyone were willing to forgive. Conflicts, terrorism, and wars around the world all stem from deep human hatred. The desire for revenge has dominated human history for thousands of years. The longing to reclaim justice has cost countless lives, yet war has not ceased. No omnipotent being can stop such brutality, but each small individual of us absolutely can, by freeing ourselves when we are willing to forgive others and ourselves. All past mistakes belong to the past. They cannot be changed. They cannot be different. While revenge breeds destruction, forgiveness, compassion, and kindness can turn the tide for this entire planet. The more love and compassion there are, the more hardened hearts can be softened. When individuals can forgive their enemies, they not only escape the tyranny of anger and the desire for vengeance, but also touch the hearts of those very enemies. Vengeance only brings more suffering to future lives and generations. But when you forgive, you don't condone the crime, but you reject the desire for revenge and create a wave of positive energy that spreads to those around you. Try to understand how to help others practice forgiveness in their own efforts and inspire them by sharing your own journey of forgiveness. One final point I want you to truly pay attention to is this: never act in the name of justice. In the name of justice here doesn't refer to the legal system enforcing fairness in a country or organization. It relates to an individual's inner self. It's about the demand for justice in each person's psychology. The psychological demand for fairness is often driven by hatred, desire, and fear. There's a story in the New Testament like this. During Jesus' ministry, a group of Jews brought a woman caught in adultery and said to Jesus, "This woman was caught in the act of adultery, and according to the law, we have the right to stone her to death. What do you say?" Jesus just bent down and wrote on the ground with his finger. Then he stood up and said, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And so, one by one, everyone left. Jesus gently said to the woman, "Go now and leave your life of sin." Of course, in our modern society, we cannot judge a crime by forgiving and telling them not to sin again. But be careful with what is called, in the name of justice, demanding fairness. Author Fred Luskin wrote that seemingly justified indignation is like a narcotic. It easily immerses you in the desire to condemn or punish others. Of course, you have the right to punish wrongdoings, but don't let your heart harden, accumulate more hatred or animosity, or impose your views on others. Consider your own mistakes and look back at your own life first. You can see indignation and judgment in the name of justice flooding social media whenever someone makes a mistake or has a dissenting opinion. Harsh, insulting words and heavy, relentless punishments attack individuals without regard for the full story. A barrage of hostile and hateful phrases is easily typed to satisfy what is called moral righteousness, while the person we truly need to care about is ourselves. We are very good at digging up others' pasts and mistakes and engraving them in our minds, even long after time has passed. We still view that person through a dusty, distorted lens, implicitly assuming we are superior, and then judging them. Everything is constantly changing every minute, and people are constantly changing every day. The past should not be something that binds you, and certainly not something you waste mental energy on to bind others. It will only suffocate you more. The French philosopher Montaigne, over 500 years ago, wrote, "No one is perfect in this world. If one were to dissect the actions and thoughts of any person in detail, even hanging him 10 times would not be enough to atone for all his sins. Therefore, on the journey of justice, you might find yourself harboring resentment even towards people who have nothing to do with your life. Remind yourself, I too have said hurtful things, done terrible things that harmed others, cut someone off in traffic, said hurtful things to the very people I love. And you yourself need tolerance. You need forgiveness from others. Each of us should only focus on recognizing our own mistakes and changing. Never attack others in the name of justice. A constant attitude of self-reflection will cultivate within you a sense of generosity towards the mistakes of others. I hope this video, based on the book Forgive for Good, has helped you gain a clearer understanding of the nature of forgiveness and given you the courage to begin learning how to forgive. We've embarked on an emotional journey together, from identifying the burdens of resentment and exploring the obstacles that prevent us from forgiving, to understanding the immense benefits that forgiveness brings to both body and spirit. And most importantly, we've outlined concrete steps to practice forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. Remember, forgiveness isn't a destination, it's a continuous journey. It requires courage, compassion, and a deep understanding of human nature, both of others and of yourself. Every time you choose to forgive, you're not just freeing others. Above all, you're liberating yourself from the weight of the past, opening the door to a more peaceful, free, and happy life. If you found this video helpful, please don't hesitate to share it with anyone you think might need to hear this message. And if you love great books on personal growth, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for the Book Smart Insights channel and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our latest videos. Thank you for listening until the very end. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in our next insightful video.